8 talented candidates compete for a job that would change their lives. However, one question forces them to push the boundaries of their intelligence, skills, and morality. An exam room is set with 8 identical tables and chairs, bearing one piece of paper and a pencil. In front are a timer and a two-way window. 8 candidates enter and quietly take their position. An armed guard soon joins them, followed by their invigilator. The man apologizes for the hardships that they endured to reach this stage, though he adds that the pressures and pain were necessary. They were to test their resilience, and if they couldn't survive their selection process, they wouldn't survive the job. He assures them that the test is simple, but it will determine who among them will be employed. He adds that their previous trial should already give the candidates an idea of their organization's power. Therefore, he asserts that within this room, there's no law other than their own. With that, he announces that there's only one question and one answer. They'll be disqualified if they attempt to communicate with him or the guard, spoil their paper, or decide to leave the room. He asks if they have any questions, and no one speaks up. The invigilator then sets the timer for 80 minutes and leaves. With dread, the candidates finally flip their papers, only to find that it's empty. Confusion dawns over them, though candidate 1 seems intrigued. Desperate, candidate 2 begins to write an essay. The security camera catches this, so the guard is ordered to take the woman away. The others can only watch as the door is shut before her. Realizing that writing on the paper would get them disqualified, the candidates put their pencils down. Candidate 5 stares at the timer and smiles. He turns to candidate 6, pointing out that the invigilator never said they're not allowed to speak with each other. Hearing this, the others relax and begin speculating together. Candidate 8 notes that they have 74 minutes to figure out the question, but candidate 3 hints that writing the answer could take 73 minutes. 5 insists that they help each other with the question, then compete for the answer. Candidate 4, 8, and 3 agree, so 5 asks 6 if he's in, but uses a stereotypical name on him. 6 tries to correct him on his name, but 5 points out that their papers only contain their numbers, therefore they shouldn't reveal their real names. 5 then assigns his companions nicknames based on their appearances. He labels 8 as black, himself as white, and 6 as brown. He then nicknames the ladies, starting with candidate 7 as blonde, 4 as brunette, and 3 as dark. Lastly, he nicknames 1 as deaf since he hasn't interacted with them. Dark complains about how stereotypical his monikers are, but Brown argues that they should focus back on the question. White then realizes that they weren't told not to move, so he stands and sees that the guard isn't responding, thus proving his point. Brunette then wonders if the question is invisible. To test this, she holds her paper over one of the lamps. When she doesn't see anything, Blonde suggests that the pencil might be there to reveal the question. Knowing that this is wrong, White challenges her to try it, but Black immediately reminds her that she'll be disqualified if she writes on her paper. Dark then wonders if their papers have different questions and different answers. Brown thinks that this could mean that there are 8 different methods to reveal them, so perhaps they're not meant to cooperate. Black argues that it's possible to have only one question, but it's printed in only one of the papers, therefore they should cooperate. Brunette urges them to start testing their ideas, at least to cross a few theories off. However, even when the others try, they see nothing on their papers against the light. White then approaches Deaf, who hasn't moved from his seat. Despite getting no response from him, White takes his paper to check it, but again sees nothing. Suddenly, Black wonders about ultraviolet and infrared rays, so they start looking for a potential source. Blonde notices a gap in the wall, so she asks the others to find the light switch to check if the gap has light. However, there are no switches in the room. Black figures out that the emergency lighting is inside the gap, so Brunette suggests creating an emergency. They start breaking the other lights and the emergency black light activates. However, this reveals nothing again. Dark then points out that the top half of the emergency lights aren't lit, so they must also destroy the black lights. With that, Black shatters one of the black lights, revealing a shard for infrared lighting. He notes that art historians use infrared to make reflectograms of the outlines beneath the paintings. This means that if there's a hidden layer in their papers, the infrared should reveal it. The women use their heels to carefully break the black light, thus triggering the infrared lighting. With 60 minutes left on the clock, they still find nothing. Realizing something, White takes candidate 2's paper to experiment on, given that she was already eliminated. With that, he shades the paper with the pencil, and it proves pointless. He then tears the paper and uses his urine to wet a portion. As the others start arguing about the methods, Dev suddenly starts speaking French. Dark translates that he's saying that it shows you yourself. He does this while while spreading the shards from the broken lights on his paper, making White think he's insane. Brown then points out that there are 4 men and 4 women, each from varying cultures and ethnic backgrounds. This means that this was staged. Therefore, this is actually a game where the organization is betting on who wins. He points to the two-way window where they're probably being watched. Brunette argues that rich people would have better things to do, but Brown disagrees. When money isn't their motivator anymore, risking it is what they live for. When Brunette thinks the invigilator is the only one behind the window, Brown asks her to bet on it. Dark advises the woman against this since Brown is likely a professional gambler. Given her observation, Brown thinks Dark is a psychologist. Still, Dark disagrees with his theory since the company's CEO micromanages anything important in his company, so the selection process is likely his idea. If anyone is watching them, it's the CEO. Brown and White wonder how she knows this, given that they were headhunted for this position. Dark reveals that she wasn't since she knew about the vacancy and applied directly. This surprises Brown and White. The others also applied for the job directly since they had their sources. Given this, Brown asks the others what they know. Black reveals they know nothing more about the job except that the lowest position in this company is better than any other offer. White then asks about the CEO, so Dark recounts how 10 years ago, a virus spread across the globe. A medical researcher patented a virus suppressant which reduced the mortality rate to half. Now, the researcher's company is leading the global health industry. Brown realizes that she's talking about Biorg, the company that develops medical longevity. However, Biorg announced a hiring freeze, but Dark reveals that it's because they're expanding privately. Black thinks they found a cure, which piques Brunette's interest. White deduces that she knows someone infected, so she's forced to admit that her boyfriend is. White reminds them that the company dictates the rules, so they can disqualify everyone for no reason. With that, he thinks that revealing Brunette's motives might have just gotten her unofficially disqualified. The woman defends that her situation is her strength, given that treating her boyfriend will deepen her commitment to the organization. Blonde wonders if the CEO is actually watching them, so Dark recounts that the man has been living privately for years. If he wanted to hire an assistant, this would have been his way. Suddenly, Brunette approaches the guard. Without talking to him, she checks his pockets and uncovers a lighter. With this, she plans to trigger the sprinklers, wondering if the company pumped something else in the pipes. Considering this, Black realizes that the light they thought was infrared might actually be safe light. Therefore, the room is a dark room. Their papers might be photographic, so they'll need developing fluid to reveal the hidden message. To test this, the others shield their papers under their tables to protect them if it fails. Def suddenly stands up and goes to the timer just as Brunette tries triggering the sprinkler system. When it doesn't work, White grabs Candidate 2's paper, though he switches it before crumpling the other one and giving it to Brunette. She burns the paper to create smoke, and this triggers the sprinklers. Black and White watch their papers but realize that the sprinklers only release water, which means this isn't the answer. Brunette then notices that her paper is gone, and White's smile reveals that he actually handed it to her for her to burn. This gets her disqualified. The others watch in horror as they realize White's willingness to destroy them. As Black threatens to punch the lights out of him, the lights suddenly turn off, revealing that they're voice activated. Brown commands the lights to activate again, proving this. Just then, Def starts crying, so White taunts him. He dares the man to rip his paper, and the sobbing man does so. With that, he gets eliminated, dropping his glasses as he's thrown out. White is proud of eliminating 2 competitors, telling the others to thank him for increasing their odds. Black argues that it won't matter if they still don't have the question, so the other man claims he already figured it out. Black threatens to beat the question out of him, but Dark notes that he won't tell them anything. Still, Black knocks him out of spite. To ensure that he won't cause trouble anymore, Black ties the man to a chair. He then suggests pushing him out the door, but Blonde points out that the invigilator specifically said that they must decide to leave to be disqualified. With less than 30 minutes on the clock, White wakes up and quickly tells them to get his medication from his pocket. This reveals that he's infected with the new virus, and the medicine is the suppressant. White begs them to give him the medicine, promising to tell them the question afterward. Black checks his pockets, but it's not there, so White thinks they already stole it. If he doesn't take it soon, he'll lose consciousness then start convulsing. In seconds, White loses consciousness. Dark notes that he had to be dealt with, wondering if he was planted there to pit them against each other. Brown, however, points out that White isn't smart enough for that, but she is. He points out that psychology is perfect for a career in human resources, so Dark is probably there to assess the candidates. Blonde asserts that it's a waste of time to think of this, so they have to trust each other for now. However, Brown prefers truth. With With that, he ties up Dark and starts questioning her. She begs the others for help, but when they don't move, Brown asserts that they also want to know the truth. Desperate, Dark confesses that she works for Bioorg's human resources but wasn't planted there. She learned about the job internally and applied since she wanted to step up her career. Unconvinced, Brown takes her paper and threatens her with it. He reveals that he's a soldier who has tortured people before. He moves to use the paper to cut her skin but discovers that Dark has harmed herself before. Using this, he torments her emotionally. He then asks about the exam's purpose, but she asserts that she doesn't know. With time running out, he starts hurting her. Black tries to stop him, but the man elbows him in the chest, stunning him. Brown threatens her further, and Dark pleads that she knows nothing more. Finally, he's convinced that she's not lying, so he casually apologizes. Blonde frees the woman and gives her a band-aid to cover her wound. As the others compose themselves, White starts convulsing. Black shares that he's seen the convulsion from his late wife. Therefore, White isn't faking it. Because of this, Blonde demands to have everyone searched for the medicine. After the search, they find nothing, but Dark notices that Brown is chewing gum. She checks under his desk and finds that he stuck White's pill with a piece of gum under his table. Brown stops her from giving the man his medicine while Black defends that they can't let him die. As they argue, Brown slaps Dark's hand, making her drop the medicine into the drainage. They try to retrieve it but to no avail. White stops convulsing and goes into a coma. Dark insists that they have to get him treated, but the others hesitate since this requires asking for help, which would disqualify them. Not wanting his death in her conscience, she starts dragging him to the door, but notices that his nose is bleeding. The man starts convulsing again, making Dark and Black panic. Just then, Blonde removes a hairpin from her hair to retrieve the medicine. In her panic, Dark turns to the camera and begs someone to help the man. This leads her to getting disqualified as she has technically talked to the invigilator. With her out, Blonde retrieves the medicine and shoves it into White's mouth. Immediately, he regains consciousness. Finally, they release the man just as they reach the last 10 minutes. He knows that Brown took his medicine, but actually admires what he's willing to do to win. Brown then reminds him that they saved him. Therefore, he must reveal the question. White chuckles and reveals that there's no question because the test is the question itself, and they're the answers. However, the company only requires one answer. He then gazes at the guard's gun, but Black gets to it before he can. The frustrated man thinks that them as a team is the answer, but this test is to see if they'll lose what they already won through selfishness, stupidity, and impatience. He points out that the invigilator never said there's only one position available. However, White argues that no company wouldn't know if they'll be hiring 1 or 8 people. With 6 minutes remaining, he approaches Black, noting that the job isn't worth killing for. Black argues that he was about to do the same, so there's no going back. Blonde suggests throwing the gun out the door, but White approaches Black, making him pull the trigger. The gun doesn't fire, allowing White to pummel Black. He stabs the man with a pencil and goes for the weapon, but Brown tries to stop him. Still, he grabs the gun and hits him with it, thus allowing him to discover that the weapon requires a fingerprint to fire. With that, he goes to the guard and uses his hand to aim at the others. Unwilling to be killed for a job, Brown volunteers to disqualify himself, so White orders everyone to walk out of the room voluntarily. Brown steps out willingly, and White aims the gun at Black, ordering him to do the same. The man argues that people will know he was murdered, but White points out that he's a carrier of the virus because of his late wife. Therefore, his death can be excused as him falling to the illness. Blonde volunteers to leave, though she hints at a plan to Black as she goes. She opens that door, and with White focused on her, she declares lights out before stepping out. The room gets dark, and Black attempts to jump at White. However, when White activates the lights again, he sees that he was able to shoot Black in the chest. The man then turns, noticing that Blonde is hiding at the side of the door. Therefore, she hasn't technically left the room. Before he can do anything, the timer goes off, revealing that the exam is over. Thinking they're out of time, White becomes hopeless. He finally leaves the room, and as he does, Blonde notices that Def dropped his glasses. White then returns as no one has confirmed that the game is over. He yells at the window, but the guard grabs him and reveals that there are actually 30 seconds left in the game. He checks the timer and realizes that one of the buttons allows them to speed up the countdown. This is when he finally recalls how Def approached the timer while they were busy. He already stepped out of the room, therefore he's been disqualified. Defeated, White aims the gun at his temple, but it doesn't fire. The window then finally reveals the invigilator on the other side. White is then escorted out, so Blonde picks up Deft's glasses, and